Hello, and welcome to the podcast for the Practitioner's Guide to E-commerce. We bring our discussions with people who execute things in the world of the e-commerce rather than just simply talk about. So, my first guest on this podcast is Christopher Hibbard, with whom I've had the pleasure of working on one of our clients' project as well. Welcome, Chris. Good morning.
Good morning, Vikram. Yeah, so I'll introduce myself, I guess. So I've worked in the construction industry for 10 years. The majority of that was at FFX. My focus was the e-commerce delivery at FFX, and I've gone on to do the same thing where I've moved on to now. But yeah, that's what we'll talk about. We'll talk about what we did there, the work that we did with Better Commerce, and how important it was to get the PIM into FFX, but also how difficult that is to deliver that information to the stakeholders and getting everyone's buy-in as well.
Thank you for joining us, Chris. Today we're primarily going to talk about how is PIM important, what is the importance of PIM in the world of power tools and the industrial goods, and how does it help, what are the key challenges, and how do you get about implementation, what have you done, what are your lessons from that space, and basically helping our other people, our colleagues in the same space to do the PIM right way. So should we get started?
Yeah, let's get started.
Perfect. So Chris, you've given your introduction already. So let's just talk about, setting up the context. How do you think is this PIM relevant in the world of industrial goods and power tools? Why is that? Why do you think it's relevant?
I think it's more relevant when, if you think of it from a customer's perspective, when they need a product to do a job, especially in the industrial and construction industries, there's usually a specification that needs to meet, and there's a whole array of products that they can choose from. It's quite a saturated market when it comes to the products that they can choose from. Being able to navigate down to the right type of product is often very difficult because, say, for example, you want to buy a drill. You could land on a PLP that's got, 200-300 drills on it. And it's like, okay, well, which one do I need? And so being able to, filter down effectively is one of the most important things. And where in an ERP system, trying to enrich the content and making sure that the content is normalized, that's sometimes quite a lengthy process, often quite difficult. And certainly where I found it, where we had a lean team, it was particularly difficult to be able to make that impact where, you wanted to make it easy for the customer to be able to drill down to their products. So by onboarding a PIM, it really helps you focus your team and dedicate the correct resource to faceted navigation for one thing. Obviously, there's a huge amount more to it. It's not just a piece of software. It's a whole way of reorganizing your product data.
So tell me, what if there was no PIM? Typically, on a lot of these commerce platforms provide you some basic product management capability out of the box. So what are the downsides of not having a PIM? What are the challenges or problems that are caused by having a poor PIM or no PIM at all?
Well, like I say, it tends to be more around lengthy processes,
Right.
and a waste of your internal resource, because if you want to get to a goal, it often takes a lot longer, or it's not possible. You have to create constant customizations, so it's not just then a drain on your e-commerce team if you have one. It's a drain on the developers as well. They're constantly having to develop new features for your ERP system if you have the ability in-house as well. There's a lot of companies that don't have in-house developers, that can develop such things. Yeah, in terms of internal process and being able to get that accurate information at the right time. By moving to a PIM system, we were able to create customizations that we never even thought of. There was one where we had to integrate a new product launch into like a buying group system. And as part of that, we had to map all of our products to their category structure.
Yeah.
Now, if you think of, how everyone has their taxonomy, it's a standard category tree that goes all the way down.
Sure.
if you have something like what we had, where we had to completely absorb their category structure, it was as simple as creating another group within the attribute sets, and then within that group we could create a 4-level category mapping to our a buying groups portal. The same would work for eBay, the same would work for Amazon and marketplace channels. And then having a PIM like with what we had with Better Commerce, it was easy because then we could create a feed automatically out of the PIM that avoids having to use an additional third-party software, something like Channel Advisor or something like that, or Actionable, where you would then have to integrate with something else, pay for something else, and then have to use their platform to then upload to eBay API or Amazon API, or in this case a completely custom API which no one had a built-in API for. And again, we could do that without the use of a developer. It was what would have been a few months worth of a project. It took a couple of days. That was to get all of their products, all of their product categories, and map them to all of our products.
One thing more, Chris, that I've seen is a lot of times the product data is spread across various spreadsheets, across various network drives. Have you also seen something like that this data sheet is lying there, and what has your experience been around that?
We had that. So, and I guess it's a problem with reporting as well. So often, again, with, other sort of commerce platforms, ERP systems, you have to get custom reports to do various different things. And we ended up with this giant spreadsheet with every single product that we sold, whether it was in stock, out of stock, discontinued, not discontinued, part of our stocked catalog or part of our non-stock catalog. We had every product on there and various different fields that we could refer to. I don't know. Say we had to do a campaign, like say for example a Black Friday campaign, and we needed to get a group of products to meet a certain specification to go into that campaign. There was various different reasons why we'd need this type of information, but yeah, every day we'd go into this spreadsheet, which was we dubbed it the PIM spreadsheet because that's what we wanted. We wanted a PIM. So we had a giant spreadsheet, and that became unruly, and it's not the best way forward. It's out of date within minutes. So that's not the best way to go about things. But with the PIM, it was nice and easy to go in, navigate, find exactly what you want, and prepare exactly what you want.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree with you. A lot of businesses tend to, work with the spreadsheets spread over different network drives, which tend to become a nightmare over a period of time. Maybe good to start with, but over a period of time. Help me understand at what point and at what volume of product data do you think a PIM is relevant, and below which it is a bit of an overkill?
As in, how many SKUs do you need for a PIM?
Yes. At what point do you think it justifies the effort, time, and cost, rather than doing it for everything and everybody?
Yes, it's an interesting question. I've gone from managing 90,000 SKUs that were live online to about 8,000, and I miss a PIM. So I guess where it becomes. Also, it depends on the size of your team as well. Say, for example, you've got a team of one. That one person might be able to manage 500 SKUs. Say, for example, you've got a team of two. Again, like maybe you can manage 1,000 SKUs. And that's if you're dedicated to that the whole time. Because a PIM job is not ever done. Every advancement you make, you probably have to do something within the PIM to optimize it. One of the projects that we worked on was, making sure that there was a range comparison within the categories, which was relevant. And we did a lot of customer analysis on what they found relevant. A lot of companies do range comparisons, Amazon do it, but a lot of the information is usually useless. You don't actually have the actionable attributes, which would be the informative object to the customer to say, oh yeah, I want to buy this product. You often get a picture and it's like, oh, this is kind of similar. So in terms of number of SKUs, it really depends on workload and how complex they are. I don't know, 5,000,
Yeah.
2,000. Yeah, it's a difficult
In
question, that
terms
one.
of, now, I think that's a very, very fair way of putting it across. And then in terms of, let's say, what would you say is the right, why is PIM more relevant for power tools and industrial goods over, let's say, fashion or any other sector or segment? Why is it more relevant for power tools
I
and
wouldn't
industrial
say
goods?
I wouldn't say it's more relevant. I would say it's just got a different relevance. Like I say, if I was shopping for, a t-shirt, I might care that I want a black t-shirt and I want it to be, my size, or, and with fashion, your attribute sets, they can be a lot more broad. A lot of the things are like color, size, style, fit. With power tools and the ancillaries as well, everything is much more technical. Everything is, and there's a lot of similarities between the attributes as well. So say, for example, if you're talking about size of a screw, it's going to be completely different options to the size of a circular saw blade. And it's going to be completely different options for the size of a screwdriver. So the sort of initial data, when you look at it, you're like, oh, okay, well, I think we'll probably get away with, this number of attributes and attribute sets to cover the whole breadth of our product range. Actually, it's not the case. Yeah. It's per category. Per category should have its set of attributes, and they should be, very well put together and normalized for each category. And like I say, when it comes to the customer's experience, they need these to be correct. They need these to be accurate. They know what they need to do to complete their job. If they want a circular saw blade, go back to that one. They know whether they, what material they want to cut through. They know whether they want a fine cut or they want quick cuts. They know whether they, what blades fit their machines. So
That leads us to a very interesting point, which is about the product data modeling.
yeah,
How are you modeling your categories and the related attributes accordingly? Like you said, in fashion, it's a fairly simple and a broader category set. Color, the majority of them would probably fit in that these two parameters itself. But whereas in the power tools and industrial, it's a much more complex data model. And that just raises the stakes of the overall product data and findability from the customer perspective.
yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, completely agree. And how to model it, really, really good question. And it really depends on internal uses and external to the customer as well, because a PIM isn't just about the customer. It's about the business as a whole as well, and how we integrate with every single system. And so we can talk about that a little bit now when we talk about the modeling and maybe, I've mentioned attribute sets and attribute groups. Not sure how much anyone knows what I mean when I say attribute sets and attribute groups. So if you think about the hierarchy of a product, let's stick with circular saw blades. So a circular saw blade would live in a circular saw blades category. That parent category would be, power tool accessories, for example. The attribute set, in the case of where construction products are concerned, we found it made sense to have an attribute set, which was a group of attributes per category, per child category. So circular saws would have its own circular saws attribute set. You don't have to do it that way. You could do it at a higher level. You could do it at power tool accessories. Power tool accessories is an attribute set, and that's a group of attributes that you can apply to the whole thing. But it becomes a bit clouded when you're actually populating the product data. You don't know what to fill out, what to not fill out. So, certainly when we migrated over, we had a lot of duplication where we'd, consolidated our categories, tried to cleanse the data. And when I say tried to cleanse the data, we couldn't cleanse it enough when we got in there, but actually we had a good starting point, and then we had to continue cleansing within the PIM itself. Exactly. And we got it to a really good point as well. The attribute set, so you've now got a group of attributes which you can assign to a product. Now, part of those attributes, they're going to be on every single product, every single category. And this is when I start talking about, what else are you integrating with? Are you integrating with something like Slim Stock, which was, a piece of software that the buying team would use to make sure that they're ordering the right quantities, etc., etc. With something like that, there's data that is required to make that platform optimized. How many products are in a carton, how many cartons are on a pallet layer, how many pallet layers are on a pallet. So you can build up that information, and that's completely separate of like what you're doing with the product. That's integrated with something else and a completely different department that never thought they would even care about PIM. So you can put that on every product. And the way we did it, we just created a default attribute set that would go across all, well, not attribute set, attribute group that went across all attribute sets.
Yep.
So, that would contain, other information like, is the product hazardous? Is there a class 9 hazardous warning on it? What's the warranty like? Can you, put some additional warranty information behind that product? These attributes are across the board. So they go in that sort of default set, default group. And then within that set as well, we have another group, which is category specific. And this is really for the website. What are we going to be using on the website and where are we going to be using it? So, and this is where it becomes key to have the individual attribute sets per category. And so, with the circular saw blade, you might say, what diameter is it? What bore is it? What kerf thickness is it? How many teeth does it have?
So basically, it allows you to build category-specific attribute sets, which make it easier to organize the data from customers' discoverability perspective and also managing it internally as well.
Exactly. And then
is to make the data as rich as possible from not just from merchant website perspective, but overall from a merchandise perspective as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Which would potentially help your technical staff as well to provide much more in-depth customer support on contact centers as well.
Yeah. Like I say, integrations, the team being able to interrogate the data, the customers being able to interrogate the data, it makes it much more possible and less time consuming.
And makes it easier for your customers to find what they're looking for and builds trust in the eyes of the customers, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. No, that's very, very helpful and valuable, Chris. Now, next thing that I wanted to understand was, how do you go about doing the whole PIM implementation? If you look at it, how do you go about evaluating the need of PIM within a business, and potentially then what are the steps that you should be looking at from perspective of selecting a PIM solution? What do you think should be happening in these two steps?
So first of all, have a think about, what your business goals are. What's your 6-month plan? What's your 5-year plan? And all the other different plans in between. How are you going to get there? What are your biggest pain points as a business? The majority of businesses that, will be looking at these plans will have a problem with data. That's pretty much guaranteed.
So if I can ask, what were the plans when you started to look at a PIM? What were the plans from your perspective for next 6 months or a year plan for starting that PIM project discussion altogether within the organization?
Well, we were planning to do a rebrand. We were planning to redo the website, so completely change the website as well. And that's the presentation to the customer, that, how we wanted to reflect ourselves. We started off as a small company, just a small shop, and grew to be, one of the biggest sort of power tool retailers that was out there. But we didn't feel like it in terms of customer experience when they came to our website, when they bought our products. We felt that there was a gap there between where we had grown to and the presentation of our brand, and also our plans for growth as well. Looking at our plans for growth and looking at building those foundations to then, then grow to the correct level. We knew we had to do something quite drastic, and we had a lot of data. 90,000 products. That's a huge amount. And with that, comes a lot of different suppliers and a lot of different information that's passed to us, which we then have to normalize. So that was our plan. It was almost like rebuilding the foundations to grow.
So would you say that if it was not about re-platforming and refreshing the whole brand, would you still have had the need to build or go for a PIM? would you still have gone for that independently of the whole project?
Personally, I was asking for this for a long time.
Okay.
But in terms of the stakeholders buy-in, it was a good time to say this is absolutely necessary now. So that there is the internal discussions that you're always having, and everyone has a roadmap within every different department. Every department lead has a list of wishes that they'd like to get to. I have one now, to say, right, okay, well, this is the budget that we should be having.
Yeah.
And this is what we hope to gain from that budget. So yeah, those conversations are always going on, but there are always the internal business goals as well, and the internal blockers which always come in terms of where I was, and the right time to have that conversation. That was the time to have it. And we also had certain people that joined the business, as in like, they'd come from other large companies, and
Yep.
they had seen the success of having a PIM and having, one source of truth, in previous companies. So that helped, so yeah, it was in terms of, the stars aligning, that was the case there. But, it doesn't mean to say that, that's the only time you can do it. You can do it whenever your business sees fit. And, if you can have those conversations and, you get the buy-in from those stakeholders, that's important.
And how would you go about, what was the criteria that you defined for selecting PIM solutions? What was the criteria for shortlisting? How did you what were those criteria to evaluate and decide?
We had quite an in-depth criteria. So me and my director at the time, we sat down and we put together what's called an RFI, request for information. And we thought of all of the things that we would love to have in terms of, imagine if we could do this, imagine if we could do that, imagine if we could do that. We wrote it all down in an RFI document, and we send it off through a third party that then validates that, who will come back to say, yeah, we can do all of this. So, from our perspective, yeah, we had eBay, we had Google Shopping, we had Amazon. So they were right up there as like, yeah, we need something that just integrates with those systems, and we don't need to keep bothering the developers for, an API update or this, that, or the other, or this type of change. So those selling channels, they were straight away really important. We knew that our data was, on a product level, it was almost impossible to normalize and get consistent. And we had a lot of hidden data in our database as well, where we'd try to clean and clean and clean and clean again. And the way that we were doing that perhaps wasn't the best practice. So yeah, we ended up with a lot of issues, and also no way of separating or mapping effectively, oh, this one's for an eBay attribute, which is similar to a website attribute that we have. But it's also similar to an eBay attribute that we have. So Amazon, so we end up with like,
there was a lot of data duplication basically across the board.
Yeah. So in the case of
find it out.
In the case of a circular saw blade, you might have size. Yeah. One platform, you might have diameter on another platform, and on another platform they might have blade size. And you have to call it that, right? Otherwise the platform won't ingest that data. So you end up with 3 different attributes on the same product that need to be populated, and ideally you want that to be one.
Put all of this in your RFI as well, I'm assuming.
Yeah, exactly. As well as image management. We had an issue with even just storing images internally. We had a massive image library internally, but it was causing issues in terms of space and
How long
that was a problem.
Did it take to write down or draft down that whole RFI?
A couple of hours.
Hours? That was really quick, I would say. Not many days or months.
No.
Brilliant.
No, we basically shut ourselves in a room. We knew what we wanted anyway. Very few
people know that, really.
Yeah.
What we want.
Yeah. In terms of like, what platforms are you going to grow onto? What are your pain points? If you don't know as a department head, then maybe bring in a consultant that can help you with that. But you should have an idea. If you're working with this every single day, and your pain points in terms of what's causing your team, extra time to do something, or, the output isn't quite working, or, all of these types of things,
I can bring you back, Chris. How long did that selection process run through then? How many vendors did you evaluate? How long did that process go through?
that process went for maybe a couple of months, where we had a few different demos. It might have taken a bit longer because we were looking for a few different things. We were looking for PIM, we were looking for a CMS, we were looking for a web platform that we could change onto. We were looking for new ways of managing our internal commerce as well. So
yeah.
We had a few different things that we knew we needed to improve on, and that was, we were going through that selection process and seeing if there was someone that would potentially do all of them, but we didn't. At the same time, we wanted to be conscious that we didn't want someone who had just land grabbed something that they had no expertise in. We wanted to see what the difference was with having a top of the line headless solution in terms of the website, as well as the top of the line PIM, as well as the, like I say, this was our relaying of the foundations for growth. So everything had to be the best.
Absolutely. And what were the primary lessons that you typically learn from that whole selection process? Pick some really good lessons from that selection process. For example, some vendors might offer some capabilities, some vendors might offer other capabilities. What did that eventually boil down to? What prioritization of features, or was it support? What exactly did it eventually boil down from a selection perspective?
I think it was actually the teams behind the platform. That was probably the most important thing. There might have been one thing that we liked on one PIM platform, another thing we liked on another PIM platform, another thing that seemed to be an all-rounder. But we were also very conscious that, there was pros and cons to every single platform. Yeah. And it's not just a piece of software again. It's an extension of your team. And so we wanted someone that wanted to grow as much as we wanted to grow, someone that would work with us. And that level of support is huge for me, to have someone be able to guide us through and to also grow with us and allow us to input in our ideas, which would ultimately benefit everyone within that platform as well, and grow together.
You say you had potentially sacrificed a few features or capabilities in the favor of getting a better support from the team and a better let's say guidance. Yeah
absolutely.
And looking retrospectively, do you think that was a wise decision, or would you have gone in another direction after having worked with that software for some time, after having worked with eCommerce for such a long time now?
No, it wasn't the wrong decision at all. And in fact, the things that we liked about other platforms, we just got put on the roadmap with Better Commerce to improve the PIM on Better Commerce as well. So we ended up with the features that we wanted and the support that we wanted, and we're very happy in that selection. So it didn't take long for us to, say, well, we like this. And then from your perspective, you're like, yeah, that's good. We'll do that. And then it was in. In terms of the PIM that we started with and the PIM that we had after a year, it was almost a different beast.
What was the implementation process like? How long did it take? What was the overall process? Getting all these stakeholders involved, the data side of it, the data modeling side of it. How was that process? What exactly did you do? What were the biggest challenges that you think you found on the way?
PIM itself, in terms of implementing that, it was a little bit staggered the way that we did it, because you also have the day-to-day running of the business. And I think we started in September, and PIM was integrated probably we started in July, didn't we? And then it was probably done by October. Now, if you think of what you're doing as a business at that time of year, you're planning for peak,
Yeah.
So we were planning for peak at the same time as implementing a PIM, and we were also building a new website. So it took us about 3 months to get it implemented. I think the biggest challenge was knowledge. We started off with one plan in terms of how to migrate the product data over, and that was it was fairly simple in terms of like you had said to us, here's the JSON model that you have to create. Okay, then that's easy enough. We'll just create that. That process, it took a few days. We had a lot of products, and that was probably
Yes.
the
I think the
longest part
biggest
of it
challenge
was
was primarily around the data modeling side of it, because there was so much of duplication of data.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that goes from products to attributes to
Attributes. I think started
everything,
with
and there's
almost
also gaps.
40,000, 50,000 attributes, and boiled it down to then deduplicated that down to about 10 to 15,000 attributes.
Yeah,
And about
and then
4,000.
it still needed manual cleansing after that. So
Yeah.
that was probably the hardest bit. And I mean, we tried to go a little bit higher level with the attributes, trying to say, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll do it at the parent category level. And so we did that. We created all of the attribute sets from parent category level. We exported them, we imported them, but it wasn't a good fit. So we deleted it all out, and we did it from the child category level, and that ended up being a much better fit. And then it gave us a really good indication of how many gaps there were. And I think we didn't think there was as many gaps as what there was.
Yeah.
If you think we had so many rows of data,
Absolutely.
and a lot of them were just almost pointless.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Absolutely. So what was the upside of implementing the PIM, Chris, in the business? What was the final results that you could demonstrate to the business that these were the benefits of implementing PIM?
we had a single source of truth. We had one place that we could go for all of the product data, for all of the reporting, and we could actually far improve that customer experience by having a PIM, and also, like I say, creating those integrations, which are really important in terms of, oh, we've got this idea, we want to do this. Okay, what do we need? We need to create a data feed. Okay, we can do that. It's all right. We've got the data, we've got the attributes, we can segment the data, we can create a feed any which way you like, and it'll be up and running in a very short period of time.
If you were to quantify
the
benefits and present it to the management, what were the top 3 things that you could present to the management from a benefit, let's say the upside of implementing the PIM, which could justify the cost and effort and time that has been invested into the business?
I would say SEO rankings improved. Like I say, with better structured data, you can be much better on your SERPs, much faster time to market, and customer experience improved. I would say that they were the 3. And when I say faster time to market, it's not just, like I say, on your singular platform, your own e-commerce platform. It's all platforms. You're straight in there.
Yeah.
There's
it's across the board, basically.
Exactly. And things, certain things that you wouldn't even think of, like sitemaps. I know that we had a problem with sitemaps that we didn't realize for a few months. It's just one of those that was just like automatically fixed. Faster time to market, like we could be on every single channel, really, really super quickly, and everything was right as well. When you've got validated data, then it's a much smoother implementation of those new flagship products, or even the non-flagship products, just your general products. And the customer experience gets improved. There's no mismatching of attributes. There's no incorrect SKUs. It's a much better way of working, a much more efficient way of working.
It seems you really had your time with PIM and the product data, and you really had your hands dirty in that whole process, and you really drawn out good success of that and demonstrated that back to the business as well, which is absolutely commendable, because managing data is one of the most complex parts of any business, especially the product data, right? And kudos to you for that, for driving that whole project to success. Now, before we wrap up, what are the 2-3 things that you would say piece of advice for people who's just starting with PIM, what is your favorite feature in the overall PIM stack?
Okay, so piece of advice: start small. If you're new to this, pick one category, get it right. Don't worry about doing everything at once. I did approach it from like doing everything at once, had to delete it all, had to start again. Pick one category.
Don't try to boil the ocean in
Don't
one.
Yeah, exactly. Don't underestimate how much time it's going to take. Take your time to clean it up and just, start small, get the ball rolling and grow and allow that time to happen. What was the other one?
What's your favorite feature in the overall PIM stack?
Um, Again, probably just having data validation and making sure that we've got a normalized data that's in there. I didn't even mention the completeness report, but that was something that's absolutely key, especially when we were going through doing like smaller projects that were across the board.
Yeah.
We used the completeness rules to track that, and also, our stakeholders were very invested in how long things were taking, how much we had managed to get through, and what's our percentage of completeness. Using the completeness report made us, have that information extremely quickly, and we could just export that from the report section. Sorry, it made it really, really easy for us to then track our progress and make sure that we had 100% of our products complete with, all different attributes, which we found absolutely key to the customer's experience.
Sounds fantastic, Chris. I think it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. Just before we wrap up, one last thing. What do you see in terms of the next evolution, or how do you think, where should the PIM be? What should be the next stage for the PIM industry or the PIM solutions per se? What is the feature that you would say this change the game altogether or change the game again? What would you want to see
Yeah,
more?
something that I'm working on, which is AI-driven data cleansing and enrichment.
Mm-hmm.
So automatic attribute population would be absolutely key. Some of the problems that I found with it is you can't trust AI. So
It's known for level of hallucination as well.
yeah, so it's going to be the next thing. At some point, it's going to work.
Yep.
I'm sure you're already working on
Yeah.
ways in getting that working. I know that you're always trying to improve. So yeah, that's why I would say it'd be the next big thing.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's been absolutely wonderful. I just loved having all of this conversation with you and learning so much more. Of course, I was part of that process as well. But again, hearing it in a much more structured way is always slightly different, brings a new perspective to all that you've done in the past. And just looking at it just brings back so many good memories. And it's been absolutely wonderful, Chris. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much. Any closing
Thank you,
remarks you
Vikram.
want to put across?
Well, if anyone's looking at a PIM solution, talk to you, talk to Vikram, and
Thank you
yeah,
for that.
really try and assess what you need to do as a business, because it's, if you make a bad choice and get stuck with something that doesn't suit your business, then, was it worth it? So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Christopher, and really appreciate those kind words. Thank you so much. That's
Thank
it.
you so much. That's good. Thank you very much.